Hello, Jacksonites, and welcome to Take 2 of Top 20 Favorite TV Shows. So, just going to skip through all the bullshit. I'm just going to jump right in. I still have my 5 honorable mentions, but just pretend that Take 1 just didn't exist. My first honorable mention is My Name is Earl. Season 1, I think, is one of the funniest and most genius, entertaining seasons of television in the last 10 or 15 years. It was funny, it was original, it was witty, it was entertaining, it was well told, the story was well done. There were moments in the show where I was just dying of laughter. And then season 2 rolled around, where a vast majority of the season is focusing on Earl trying to save his piece of garbage ex-wife from going to prison for crimes that she committed that were her fault and she was absolutely guilty of. And then the finale has to send Earl off to prison in her place for something that he didn't even commit. And then all of season 3 deals with Earl being in prison and also Earl going back to his horrible ways. And then season 4 was just boring, meandering bullshit that ended with a cliffhanger cancellation. If the entire series was the same tone of the first season of My Name is Earl, this easily would have been in my top 10 favorite TV shows, easily. Honorable mention number 2, Samurai Jack. I almost put this on my list. The only reason I didn't, though, is because I've only seen the first 2 seasons. 3, 4, and 5 are going to be a little bit difficult for me to get my hands on. But of this era of Cartoon Network, this was easily my favorite show, with Ben 10 kind of being a close second. Excellent action, great story, great animation, great music, and overall, definitely one of the most unsung masterpieces of animation history in the last 2 decades. I also like that this is one of those few shows where the fans kept the memory alive and kept the requests alive, and the series did get a proper conclusion like almost 10 years after its cancellation with the 5th and final season, which was, from what I've seen, pretty violent and dark. I want to see more of this show, and I may do like a revamped top 25 and actually put this in that list. But for right now, it's just going to be an honorable mention. Honorable mention number 3 is The Walking Dead. This show, honestly, is very hit or miss. I love the first season except for the last 2 episodes. I like season 2 a lot more than most people do, but I think that it could easily have 3 entire episodes of filler snipped out, and it would have been a much better season. I still do think that they made too much of a big jump from 6 episodes in season 1 to 13 episodes in season 2. Season 3, I love all the stuff with the prison, hate all the stuff with the governor. Season 4, love all the stuff with the prison, hate all the stuff with the governor. The governor has a very unfulfilling and anticlimactic and underwhelming death as well. But everything also with Rick and Carl trying to survive post the fall of the prison, that's all really riveting stuff as well. Season 5, the first 8 episodes are stellar. Excellent television. And then the next 5 episodes after episode 8 are just boring filler. Thankfully, the season picks up a little bit in the last 3 episodes when the group reaches Alexandria, but that string of 3 or 4 episodes post-episode 8 is a chore to sit through. I completely gave up on The Walking Dead after season 5. When I heard that the first half of season 6 takes place over the course of 1 entire fucking day, that just left a bad taste in my mouth, and I was just like, okay, nah, I'm done with this show. But when The Walking Dead is good, it's stellar, an utterly stellar show, but it's just such a shame that it's so inconsistent with its quality. I definitely do feel like I got out of this show at the proper time. Otherwise, I'd just be setting myself for disappointment after disappointment. But still, like I said, when The Walking Dead is good, it's stellar. Honorable mention number 4, the first Toku show in this video, Kamen Rider Amazon's Season 1. I was very much so blown away by this show. Yes, this is a bootleg because Toei is so fucking stingy. They've released only 1 Kamen Rider movie on Region 1 legitimately in the States, that being the reboot Kamen Rider the First movie. Other than that, there's just nothing but bootlegs and Region 2 DVDs all over the place. But I'm absolutely glad that I bought this because I was very much so blown away by this show. Great dark reimagining of the original Kamen Rider Amazon show from 1975. It's got blood, it's got gore, it's got violent toku action, there's death and carnage and destruction throughout an excellent 13-episode run. It's got great action, it's got great effects, good characters, great music, awesome action scenes, great Kamen Riders, and a dark story that keeps you on the edge of your seat and enthralls you throughout its 13-episode run. And then Season 2 came along with too dark of a story, and an unlikable protagonist, boring villains, characters that seem to go backwards in their character development. They started really vamping up the massive problems that I see with modern-day tokusatsu shows being too much catering to kids. Well, it's still a dark show, but there's still definitely some corporate executive, there's got to be more toys bullshit, which in my opinion, Kamen Rider has been completely destroyed by Bandai. That was starting to bleed a little bit with the second season of this show, and it also leads into a very unsatisfying finale, though apparently there is a movie that wraps up the storyline with the two shows, or with the two seasons of this show, but I haven't seen it. But the first season of Kamen Rider Amazons is absolutely stellar. If you like dark, violent, edgy tokusatsu shows, definitely give this at least the first season a watch. It'll definitely keep you entertained. And finally, my final honorable mention is Sons of Anarchy. The sole reason why I did not put this on my top 20 list is because I've only seen the first 3 seasons of this show. This was introduced to me by my mother. I never watched this show when it was on the air because at the time of this show's airing, there were so many TV shows that were airing at the time. You had Sons of Anarchy, Breaking Bad, The Walking Dead, Mad Men, House of Cards, Justified, all of these TV shows that were going on at the time. And there was just like so many shows. I was like, okay, now I can't get into any of this. They all look the same. There's so many just rapid firing at me. I can't. So I avoided all of these shows. Long after this show ended, I finally just out of the whim decided to watch this with my mom. I watched the first 3 episodes with her, and during those 3 episodes, I was hooked. Literally in the first episode of this show, you see a dude get stabbed in the balls with a pool cue. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, okay, I think I have something here I might like. And by the time the 3rd episode rolled around, I was hooked. I was like, okay, I need to get more into this. So like I said, I've only watched the first 3 seasons. It kind of does suffer a little bit from Breaking Bad syndrome, being that all of the characters are incredibly unlikable, so it's difficult to really get invested in this show when you don't really know who to focus on. But Sons of Anarchy is a great show. It's got a gripping story, awesome action, great characters, good effects, great pacing. Overall, it's just a absolutely fantastic show. I do want to see more. I kind of feel like that the final season will kind of turn me away from the show a little bit, but still, if you have a great show and it only has like maybe 1 flub season, that's not really a strike against the show in and of itself. I am now going to jump into my official top 20 favorite TV shows. Starting with number 20 is my number 1 favorite sitcom, 2.5 Men. I do own the first 9 seasons, but I am only holding season 2 because my season 1 copy is damaged. But 2.5 Men is a phenomenal fucking funny show. Like I said, of all the Warner Brothers sitcoms like Friends and Big Bang Theory, this is easily my favorite. For some reason, though, I never really got into this when it was on the air at first. I got into this show kind of late in the 8th season. Ironically, it was the 8th season where Charlie Sheen was really starting to clash with the heads at Warner Brothers and go crazy. A lot of people have said that his divorce from, oh shit, what the hell is her name? His divorce from Brooke Mueller was really starting to go down, and he was just kind of starting to fly off the rails, and that's why season 8 is the second shortest of the entire series. I actually do remember when it was announced that Ashton Kutcher would be replacing Charlie on the show, I was kind of against it. I watched season 9 the day that it debuted, the first episode, and I was like, I don't know. I stuck with it for 5 episodes, and I said, no, I can't do this. I don't think I can do this. And then I finally got my hands on the first 8 seasons of the show, and then I got season 9, and I binged through 8 seasons of 2.5 Men over the course of a week. And then I watched season 9, and that's when I kind of realized that decision to bring on Ashton Kutcher honestly did breathe in some new life into the series. Because again, coming from somebody who binged the first 8 seasons of Charlie Sheen and then watched season 9 with Ashton Kutcher, it really did reinvigorate the show for another couple of seasons. Because if they tried to just recast Charlie Sheen but still keep the character of Charlie around, season 9 would have been the final season. I guarantee you, if they decided to do that, the show would have lasted only 9 years instead of 12. Now, I have not seen the rest of the show. I've only seen the first 9 seasons. I have, though, seen the final episode of the entire series, and I was not impressed. I thought that was a very, very, very unsatisfying finale to a great show. But still, when 2.5 Men is really good, it's a fucking excellent, stellar sitcom, and is one of the funniest shows that I have ever seen in my entire life. Coming in at number 19 is Super Robot Red Baron, the first tokusatsu show on my actual top 20. Now, I didn't really think much of Super Robot Red Baron. I saw a review of the show, and I saw some clips, and I thought, okay, this looks kind of fun, so I'll pick up the Mill Creek box set for only $15. I watched the first 10 episodes, ironically, on the first disc. And ironically, too, episode 10 is probably my favorite episode of the entire series. Then the show just got away from me because it kind of does have a slow start, and it really does suffer from having a low budget. It's also clearly trying to be a cash-in on the tokusatsu shows that were going on at the time, especially Ultraman and Kamen Rider. And I also do consider Super Robot Red Baron to be pretty much a live-action Mazinger Z. It's a giant robot that's piloted by somebody inside the mech's head that has a variation of attacks, including a rocket punch technique. And the pilot calls out the names of all the attacks before he executes them. Very much so is very similar to Mazinger Z, especially with the fact that you're going up against an evil mad scientist in both shows. They both have similar looking Iron Mask type henchmen. There's various robots that they go up against throughout the series. And also the title character is made out of a super special metal. In Mazinger Z, it's called Super Alloy Z. And in Super Robot Red Baron himself is made out of baronium. So they are very similar. I don't think that Super Robot Red Baron was ripping off Mazinger Z. I just think it was a coincidence. But if you watch Red Baron and you watch Mazinger Z, there are a lot of similarities. But then I decided to actually sit down and watch the entire series, and the show really did grow on me. I don't know if it got a bigger budget as the series went on. I just think the crew learned how to use their limited resources to their advantage and give us a good story with good characters and good action for what the show was. And it definitely does have a very exciting finale in space where all the plot threads come together and you go through a couple twists and turns. The show really does captivate you and entertain you to the very end. So Super Robot Red Baron is a very underrated and underappreciated show. It does very much so suffer from a low budget, and it does at first kind of seem very generic and blend in with the crowd, but it is a very underrated gem, and it's a fun show, and I highly do recommend it. At number 18 is the first Kamen Rider show, Kamen Rider V3. This is one of very, very, very few legit Region 1 DVD sets that Toei has released in the States. This fucker cost me $150. Absolutely worth it, though, in my opinion. You have every single episode of Kamen Rider V3, all 52 episodes. Tons of special features, English subtitles, and if you want to binge it, you can do it in less than a day. It's 21 hours and 6 minutes long. Do I recommend you binge this in one sitting? Probably not. I think you should take it like 12 or 15 episodes at a time. But Kamen Rider V3 is an excellent, excellent show. Now, when it comes to Kamen Rider, with the few exceptions in what is known as the Heisei and Neo-Heisei era, I am almost exclusively a Showa era purist. I think Kamen Rider was at its very best in the Showa era throughout the 60s and early to late 80s. Kamen Rider from 1971, Kamen Rider V3, Kamen Rider X, Kamen Rider Amazon, Stronger, Skyrider, Super 1, the special 1 hour long Kamen Rider ZX TV special, Kamen Rider Black, Kamen Rider Black RX, and then the 390s Rider movies, Kamen Rider Shin, Kamen Rider ZO, and Kamen Rider J. From Ichigo all the way up to J, that's my favorite era of Kamen Rider. And of those, V3 is easily my favorite. It's got the perfect length, in my opinion, like I said, 52 episodes, because while the original Kamen Rider had a whopping 98-episode run, that being the longest of the entire franchise, it's still considered just one show. It's not split up into different seasons. It's just one show that went the course of 2 years. Shows don't function in terms of seasons. They just function as one show over the course of a year. And I think 52 episodes is the perfect run. If you exceed 60 episodes, I think that's a little bit too long. And unfortunately, Ultraman Cosmos, which is the longest season of the entire show, being 65 episodes long, I do think that is a little bit too long. But 52 episodes is the perfect run. Tons of 70s campy action, tons of wacky monster designs, lots of various powers from Kamen Rider V3 himself, and also with him teaming up with Ichigo and Nigo. Great music. It's very, very 70s. If you're into 70s toku shows, this show is absolutely right up your alley, and this is easily my favorite of the entire Showa era of Kamen Rider. Can't say enough good things about this show. It's an utterly phenomenal series. At number 17, this is the oldest show that I have on this list. The original Ultraman from 1966. This is not my favorite Ultraman show of the entire series. That can be a list in and of itself. However, I still do consider this one of my favorite shows because it started an entire franchise that, aside from Godzilla, is my favorite franchise of all time. Now, granted, it has kind of been on sort of shaky grounds ever since 2011, but there still has been some decent shows that have come out since then. But of the original Showa era of Ultraman, now granted, I haven't seen every single installment. I've seen some of every single installment. But of the two shows that I have seen from beginning to end, the original Ultraman thus far is my favorite. If you're a huge fan of the 60s era of Godzilla, you will absolutely love this show. There's a lot of connective tissue between Godzilla and the Showa Ultraman series, particularly from Ultraman up until Ultraman Ace. Godzilla's suit was used for one monster in this show. The Baragon suit was used for 3 or 4 monsters in this series as well. Jiras from the original Ultraman was the Mosu Goji suit with the Daisenso Goji suit head spray painted green and yellow with a frilled lizard frill around his neck with a slightly different roar. But it literally is Godzilla just disguised to look like a different monster. Overall, the original Ultraman show is an extremely entertaining show. It's got tons of imaginative monster designs, lots of great monster action and Ultraman and monster fights, great special effects, good characters. It's kind of funny at times, it's kind of serious at times. Overall, there's a little bit of everything for the original Ultraman for everybody. If you're a big Godzilla fan, you're just a big fan of 60s era Japan monster and sci-fi stuff, the original Ultraman is absolutely up your alley. Coming up next, the first animated show on this list, Godzilla, the animated series. I don't give a fuck what anybody says about the 1998 Godzilla movie. I still love it. It's a bad Godzilla movie. Terrible adaptation of Godzilla. But as a monster movie, I absolutely love it. It's one of my favorites of all time. It's even one of my favorite films of all time. I love it. And it's thanks to that movie that spun off easily one of my favorite animated shows of all time. I fucking love Godzilla, the animated series. And for those angry Godzilla fanboys out there, this version of Godzilla definitely does put the god back in Godzilla. Very much so, more faithful to the original Godzilla than the 98 film. Great cast of characters, really good animation, fun Monster of the Week storylines, fun monster action. It is kind of kid-friendly at times, but there still are a surprising number of dark moments in this show. Oh, and there's tons of classic Toho Easter eggs sprinkled throughout this show for those Godzilla fans out there. This is an extremely underrated piece of Godzilla history in my eyes. And anybody who is a big fan of Godzilla movies, and even those few fans of the 1998 film, definitely should give the show a watch. Next up, the 2019 Harley Quinn animated show. I have only seen the first season of this show, but from what I've seen from the clips of season 2, I'm going to like season 2 just as much. Everything about this show I am totally on board with. It's gritty, it's over the top, it's violent, it's fucked up, it's funny, it's action-packed, it's loaded with tons of DC Comics Easter eggs. It's got great characters, great voice acting. It's got great animation and great designs. I fucking adore this show. Me being an anti-Batman and anti-Joker guy, I don't really mind all the Batman and Joker stuff in this show because it's done very well. And if you're a huge Batman fan too, this show definitely does have a huge supply of Batman villains in its repertoire. If you're a big fan of over-the-top violent superhero stuff, this show is definitely up your alley. Oh, shit, I can't reach my soda. Balls. Next, this is my favorite of all the animated DC stuff. Batman Beyond. Again, the biggest anti-Batman guy on the face of the earth sitting right in front of you. But damn, when Batman is done well, it's fucking done well. I do like some Batman stuff. I like Ben Affleck as Batman. I think he's the greatest live-action Batman ever. I love Batman The Dark Knight Returns. That is an absolutely phenomenal film. I definitely do regret deleting my entire superhero binge series. Why the fuck did I do that? And also, I love Batman and Harley Quinn. But Batman Beyond, I used to say the original Teen Titans was my favorite DC animated show. But now, having seen the entire run of Batman Beyond and seeing a majority of Teen Titans, I got to give it to Batman Beyond. The first season of Batman Beyond is definitely the best of the entire series. Not to say that seasons 2 and 3 are bad, but season 1 is definitely the darkest and grittiest of the whole show. The edginess kind of is lost, especially in season 3. There is a little bit in season 2, I think, in my opinion, especially in the first 10 episodes or so. But season 1 is definitely the best. It's got the best overarching story with Batman Beyond versus Blight, which unfortunately is lost in seasons 2 and 3 of the show, though it is given some closure in subsequent Batman Beyond comics. Batman Beyond is an absolutely stellar show. It's got a great, dark, gritty feel, edge, and tone to it. It's got excellent continuity with the Batman the Animated Series show, which is a good show, but I'm just not that big a fan of it as a lot of other people are. And Kevin Conroy still does absolutely kill it voicing Batman. I will say that the best Batman voice actor of all time definitely is Kevin Conroy. Jason O'Mara, I think his name is, does an okay job voicing Batman in the modern DC animated universe, but he honestly has nothing on Kevin Conroy. But overall, Batman Beyond is a stellar show. It's got great animation, great characters, excellent music, great action scenes. It's just a phenomenal show. Coming up next, I believe, is Stranger Things. When this show first came out, I did not give a flying fuck. I was not interested at all in this show. I just did not care about the hype. Didn't care about all the praise. I just was not interested in this show at all. But I have to give all the credit in the world to my beautiful wife. She is a die-hard fan of this show. We have Stranger Things memorabilia all throughout our house. She even has those little, like, half-foot-tall plushies of all the characters on, including of the Demogorgon of Stranger Things. So one day, I think it was our fourth or fifth date, that I decided to come visit her at her place and say, you know what? Let's watch Stranger Things, because I know you're a big fan of the show, and I wouldn't mind getting into it myself, so let's watch Stranger Things. So we watched the first 4 episodes of Stranger Things in one sitting, and by the end of the 4th episode of Stranger Things, with that cliffhanger of revealing that Will is not dead and is in fact just a stuffed dummy, I was hooked. I said to her, "Oh my God, I need to come back here as soon as I can and watch this show with you." Holy shit. You do not just leave me on a cliffhanger like that and just say no. Watch the rest of the season. Watch season 2 over the course of a couple of weeks. And then me and my wife watched season 3 the day that it debuted on Netflix on the 4th of July. This is clearly a passion project. I love all the effort that's put into the show to make it look as 80s as possible. It's got a little bit of an 80s grain to the film quality. The acting is kind of 80s. There's tons of 80s references. It's dripping in 80s fashion. If hell, even this DVD box literally looks like a VHS tape. It's not, of course. It just has this. All the buffs and scrapes on VHS covers that if they were really worn out. Stranger Things season 1 and season 2. I actually did draw this on with a Sharpie, but if I didn't tell you that, I guarantee you wouldn't have even guessed. Stranger Things is just a phenomenal show. It's definitely one of the best shows to come out in the last 5 years or so. It's got a great story. Very much so as a Stephen King vibe to it. And I feel like this may have been like a precursor for Andy Muschietti's take on It 2017, especially with the first It movie. There's not enough good things I can say about Stranger Things. It's an utterly, utterly phenomenal show. I will say, however, I think season 2 is the weakest of the entire series, mainly just because of episode 7 being the spin-off episode, which is easily the weakest of the whole show. It just feels forced and completely isolated from the rest of the series. I have the nostalgia for season 1, but I just do think an overall quality season 3 has the edge over that. But Stranger Things is a great show. At number 12, Ultraman Geed. Now, like I said, the Ultraman franchise has been in a really weird spot ever since 2011's Ultraman Ginga. The Ultraman series started in 1966 with the Showa series, and it ended in 1980 with Ultraman 80. There's a couple projects in the late 80s to early 90s involving Ultraman, like a couple animated movies, mini-series, both from Australia, both garbage. Like, there was a little bit of interest in Ultraman in the late 80s and early 90s, but then the Heisei series kicked off in 1995 with Ultraman Tiga, and there's been a show from 1995 up until Ultraman Mebius's show in 2006 or 7. There's movies post Ultraman Mebius, the Ultraman Zero trilogy, but then ever since 2011, the Ultraman franchise has been in a really weird spot with really short shows. Ultraman Ginga and Ultraman Ginga S were, well, it's considered 2 seasons. Ultraman Ginga was 11 episodes long. And then there was Ultraman Ginga S, which was 16 episodes long. And then came Ultraman X in 2015, I believe, which was 22 episodes long. And every single series since Ultraman Orb, which I also do own, has been 25 episodes long. On one hand, I miss Ultraman shows being 40-something to 50-something episodes long. The last Ultraman series to be longer than 25 episodes was Ultraman Mebius with 50 episodes. So I wish there was more content, but on the other hand, being only 25 episodes apiece does make the shows a little bit easier to sit through. Of all the Ultraman shows, since Ultraman Ginga until today's Ultraman Z, Geed is easily my favorite, who is the son of, in my opinion, the greatest villain of all time, being Ultraman Belial. The return and having this character be a recurring character, being my favorite Ultraman of all time, which is Ultraman Zero. Tons of references to past Ultraman shows. A very entertaining movie that also features the return of Ultraman Orb and also has a little bit of Ultraman Zero action. Great action scenes, great effects, a fun Ultra with really cool forms, Primitive, Solid Burning, and Acro Smasher being his 3 on here. And overall, a very engaging and gripping story with a fun finale and tons of references to past Ultraman shows. Ultraman Geed is just a fun time. If you can get your hands on these Mill Creek Blu-rays, definitely do so. Now that Mill Creek has the rights to release the entire Ultraman franchise in the States legally, now that the Taiwanese Chayo Productions finally was told to fuck off with them trying to steal the rights to Ultraman, Mill Creek now has the rights to distribute the entire Ultraman franchise in the States. So that's really cool. If you're an Ultraman fan, now is definitely a good time to be one. At number 11, the Lethal Weapon TV series. Now, as you know, I am a huge fan of the Lethal Weapon movies, with the exception of number 4. Number 4 is not a bad movie, but it is kind of a lackluster Lethal Weapon movie. When I first heard that they were doing a Lethal Weapon TV show reimagining, I was kind of against it because I thought that they were just going to do a watered-down, boring, bland, bullshit, piece of shit show that is ripping off one of my favorite film franchises. I took a risk and I sat down and I watched Lethal Weapon. And then I found myself watching the entire series, at least the first 2 seasons that were out at the time. I was fucking blown away by this show. Excellent casting. Damon Wayans does a great job as Murtaugh, and Clayton Crawford does a phenomenal job as Martin Riggs. Great reimagining of the show, great action scenes, great effects, excellent chemistry, at least at first, especially in the first season. Okay, I need to get something to drink. Great episode plots, great police procedural stuff. It's got some good twists and turns here, too. Season 2 is a slight bit of a downgrade from Season 1, only because of the bullshit final episode of Season 2. Season 2 overall is very, very, very solid. I don't own Season 2, actually. I gave it to my brother as a present. I still need to get around to buying Season 2. Season 3 is even much lower of a standard than Seasons 1 and 2. For what they were doing, it's an entertaining show, but I just feel like the cast and crew were fighting a losing battle with Season 3 because there was a lot of tension between Clayton Crawford and Damon Wayans over the course of Season 2 because apparently Damon Wayans was sold a bag of apples when he was supposed to get a bag of oranges, and he was just really pissed off and just really bitter and a pain in the ass to work with over the course of this show. And it kind of seems like Warner Brothers had a bone to pick with Clayton Crawford for no reason whatsoever. So they kind of did force Clayton Crawford off the show. And Season 3 suffered because of it. And it ultimately led to one of the most heartbreaking cancellations of my entire life. But 3 seasons, 55 total episodes. If you want to look at the first 2 seasons with both Riggs and Murtaugh, because it's 40 episodes total with 18 episodes for Season 1 and 22 episodes for Season 2, you could look at every 10 episodes is equivalent to one of the movies. So, sure. And actually, that kind of does make sense quality-wise because the last 10 episodes are equivalent to the last movie, which it's just kind of subpar. Season 1 is definitely my favorite of the entire series. I feel like this is when the chemistry, the enthusiasm, and the energy is at its very best with Season 1. But still, I think the Lethal Weapon show is a very underrated gem and is easily one of my favorite shows to come out in the last 10 years. This next show I do not own, but I have talked about it quite a bit. At number 10, the 1978 Incredible Hulk show. Oh my God, I fucking love this show. Again, I don't own the show. I used to. I used to own the first 4 seasons, but then I gave them to my father for Father's Day. He grew up with that show, so I figured that'd be a good gift for him. I just haven't gotten around to buying the show again. I definitely do want to buy the entire series box set. I remember hearing about there being an Incredible Hulk TV show for quite a while when I was young. And I remember seeing in a magazine Lou Ferrigno dressed up as the Hulk, and I showed it to my dad, and I said, "Hey, Dad, is this the Hulk?" He said, "Yeah, that's from the original show. I used to watch that as a kid." So the show kind of stewed in my mind for a little while, and it wasn't until my junior year in high school where I finally got curious, and I started researching the show, and I read about the production, I read about some of the special episodes, and I read about its legacy. And then I was like, oh, okay, I need to get my hands on some of this show. And it was around Christmas where I bought the first 4 seasons. Or no, it was the first 3 seasons plus 2 of the 90s TV movies. And also, lo and behold, I find the show on Netflix. So at a Christmas party that I was attending at my aunt's, I watched the pilot movie before I got the show. I was fucking utterly blown away. I honestly thought it was the greatest TV show that I had ever seen in my life at the time. It has sort of gone down a little bit because I do realize the show suffered from a lot of budget issues. Like they reuse a lot of clips all throughout the show. They use a lot of sound clips. They reuse a lot of actors. And the series does get extremely formulaic, especially from season 3 on. I do feel that the best overall seasons of the show is the first 2. Even though, ironically, my favorite 2 episodes of the entire series are in season 4, being the first parts 1 and 2. Hulk goes up against a older 50s style Incredible Hulk, which is definitely the most special 2 episodes of the entire series, where you see Hulk go up against another Hulk. But after those 2 episodes, I never finished season 4. There was maybe 6 episodes after that. I was just feeling, you know what? After this, the show is just never going to be as good. So I just never could get myself to watch the last few episodes of season 4, as well as season 5. Season 5 was axed to a measly 7 episodes from what I originally think was going to be a 15-episode run. But that's because, unfortunately, the show got canceled. Now, there was, like I said, the 3 90s TV movies which continued and ended the story. However, this culminated in the incredibly lame and disappointing Death of the Incredible Hulk film, where Hulk simply dies from falling from a helicopter and landing on the ground. Lame! But still, the Incredible Hulk show is a phenomenal TV series. Of course, it features my favorite Marvel superhero. Lou Ferrigno is a great, incredible guy. It's got excellent, excellent plots, great acting, great action, and it's definitely something that I hold very, very, very near and dear to myself. Coming in at number 9. Okay, this is going to turn some heads. I don't give a fuck what anybody thinks of me after this. I adore this show. My wife can probably guess what I'm about to talk about. Number 9, Desperate Housewives. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. I fucking adore this show. I don't like soap operas. Like Days of Our Lives, I don't understand how the fuck you can get 55 years of one show. Then again, I don't understand how you can get 30 years of The Simpsons as well. I don't like dramas. I don't like mainly female-centric bitchy shows, but fuck me. Desperate Housewives is a phenomenal, phenomenal show for the first 6 seasons. I was originally introduced to Desperate Housewives once again through my mom. Just out of the blue, I walk into her bedroom and she's watching Desperate Housewives on TV, and I wanted to spend some time with her, so I decided to sit down. But then the show actually did hook me. So I watched about 10 episodes on TV, and I was entertained. Few years later, I lo and behold discovered that Desperate Housewives is on Netflix. I binged the first 6.5 seasons on Netflix over the course of a summer, and I fucking fell in love with this show. But then I looked ahead and I saw some of the creative decisions they're going to make in the latter half of season 7, and especially in season 8, and that kind of turned me off quite a bit. So then I just left the show alone for a few years. But then I got around to buying the show on DVD, and once again I fell in love with it. But I never went past season 6. I still to this day do own season 6. And recently, in the last 8 months or so, I have gotten my wife to become a huge fan of Desperate Housewives. I tried to introduce it to her when we first started dating, but she said no because she thought it was going to be one of those reality shows like Jersey Shore or Keeping Up the Kardashians. But then I just turned it on because I felt like watching a couple episodes, and then we ended up binging the first 2 seasons over the course of a month. So I'm just going to pat myself on the back for that. Well, she introduced me to Stranger Things. I introduced her to Desperate Housewives. To this day, I have not seen neither hide nor hair of season 8. There was a lot of creative decisions that they made in the last couple years of the show that I just did not like. They split up Tom and Lynette, who's the strongest couple of the entire series. They killed off Mike, one of the most beloved characters of the entire show. There's just a lot of decisions in the latter few years of this show that I really did not like, and I really do resist. But when this show is at its best, it's utterly stellar and some of the greatest television of all time. These next two shows I do not own, but I have seen them. At number 8, Kamen Rider O's. Now, like I said, the Heisei and Neo-Heisei era of Kamen Rider is extremely hit or miss. And unfortunately, I think a majority of it is a miss. Not to list off all the shows I don't like, but of the Heisei era, I do like Kamen Rider Agito, Kabuto, Decade, Double, O's, Forze, and Wizard. Everything else I think is garbage, especially in the last 10 years of Kamen Rider. The last really good Kamen Rider show was Kamen Rider Wizard back in 2015, 2014. Oh, it's 2012. Okay, so that's even so we've literally had 8 years of garbage Kamen Rider. Kamen Rider O's was the first post-decade Kamen Rider era. That's known as the Neo-Heisei era. And it's the only one of the Neo-Heisei era where I have seen every single episode of. I think there's 49 episodes of the show. And the show's story utterly captivated me. It's got a really great deep story, excellent action scenes, great monster designs, great Kamen Rider himself with Kamen Rider O's, easily being one of the top 10 most powerful Kamen Riders of all time. Great soundtrack, great characters. And also, it was during Kamen Rider Episode's run where we got the special 1,000th episode of Kamen Rider. That's a great accomplishment in and of itself. But overall, Kamen Rider O's is an utterly phenomenal tokusatsu series and is easily my favorite of the Neo-Heisei era. Number 7, which is my favorite installment of the regular Heisei era from Kamen Rider Kuga up until Kamen Rider Decade, and that being Kamen Rider Kabuto, the last really largely insect-themed Kamen Rider show of the entire series. There's elements of insect themes in Kamen Rider O's, but that's how Kamen Rider got started, was these big bug themes throughout the Kamen Rider series. Ichigo and Nigar based off of grasshoppers. V3 is a dragonfly. X is a giant water bug. But Kamen Rider Kabuto was the last big insect-themed Kamen Rider show of the entire franchise, and boy, does it go out with a bang. And like I said, this is easily my favorite of the regular Heisei era. It's got an extremely gripping, deep, kind of dark, very thought-provoking, great story. Excellent action scenes, great writer designs, great characters, great writer cast overall, with the perfect amount of Kamen Riders throughout the entire series. A great finale, great music. It's even got a decent movie to go with it. Kamen Rider Agito started the trend of every year with a writer show, you also get a movie to go along with it. But they're never really canon. They're just there to set up the final form for Kamen Rider. But Kamen Rider Kabuto is an utterly stellar tokusatsu series that'll keep you guessing to the very end, enthrall you with its entertaining action scenes, and make you fall in love with its characters over and over and over again. At number 6, and is easily my favorite Ultraman show of the entire franchise, doesn't feature my favorite Ultraman, though it features one of them, Ultraman Mebius from 2006-2007. Like I said, this was the last Ultraman show to feature more than 25 episodes. And this was also Godzilla Final Wars of the Ultraman series, being that this was a big anniversary show, where it's a new Ultraman series, but also takes place in the original Showa Ultra continuity. It features a return of a lot of classic Showa-era kaiju. It also features a return of all of the original classic Showa-era Ultras, Ultraman, Ultra 7, Ultraman Jack, Ace, Taro, Leo, and 80, as well as Ultra Father and Ultra Mother. They all have special guest appearances throughout the entire series. And with the 50-episode run, you could not ask for a better anniversary series. Excellent characters, great action scenes, great effects, great Ultras, with Mebius being one of my favorites and Ultraman Hikari right here being another one of my favorites. Overall, Ultraman Mebius is an utterly phenomenal tokusatsu series. It is easily my favorite Ultraman show. Might also be, just in general, one of my favorite tokusatsu shows of all time. I think that's a list in and of itself as well. Number 5, easily my favorite anime of all time. The 2005 Guyver Bioboosted Armour anime. Now, as I've said before, I am not a huge fan of anime or manga for that matter. Like Attack on Titan, I think is overrated. Dragon Ball Z, I think is garbage. My Hero Academia is crap. Naruto is crap. Avatar The Last Airbender is crap. I just don't much care for anime. Guyver Bioboosted Armour, to this day, is the only anime show to ever exist where I watched it from beginning to end in one sitting. It's the one of very few shows. Actually, I think from here on out, these are shows that as soon as I start them, I have to keep watching them until I'm done. Now, granted, this is an easy anime to watch because it has only 26 episodes. And that may be my only flaw with this show, because it only does adapt the first 4 or 5 volumes of the Guyver manga, which is kind of disappointing. And there hasn't been any Guyver material ever since this show. But it's definitely my favorite anime show. And if you want to count this in the realm of tokusatsu, it may also be one of my top 5 favorite tokusatsu shows, because holy shit, is this a great, great, great series. At number 4, Lost Tapes. I've already talked a lot about Lost Tapes. Season 3 review is coming very soon. I promise. I promise Season 3 is coming soon. This is another show where as soon as I start it, I have to watch all 3 seasons. I wish this got at least a 4th season, because there's still a lot of cryptids out there that this show could have come across to adapt into a 4th season. But overall, Lost Tapes, it's such a shame it got canceled, because goddamn is this a good show. There are some episodes of this show that utterly scared the living shit out of me. Love it. Absolutely love it. At number 3, Tremors the series, another just miserably underrated show. This is kind of a call out to the official Tremors fan base group that I am a part of on Facebook. I love this show. This is one of my absolute favorite TV shows of all time. It's such a fucking shame that this show got canceled. It kind of suffered the same fate as Firefly, meaning that this show was aired on Sci-Fi out of order and also at late hours at night. So nobody really got the chance to watch this show. And when people did watch the show, they couldn't really follow the storyline because all the episodes were aired out of order. Now, Firefly is one cohesive story spread throughout 12 episodes. So that's an even much bigger sin. This one can be viewed as an episodic series where you can just jump into one episode and get the gist. But the Mixmaster episodes are definitely one cohesive storyline over the course of a 13-episode series. Now, granted, I still to this day have never watched episode 13 because I love the show so much. I cannot bring myself to watch episode 13 because I don't want the show to end. It's that good. If they wanted to axe this after one season, that would have been fine because we would have had 26 episodes instead of 13. And I think that's the perfect run for a show, especially for something like this. 26 episodes would have been perfect, but unfortunately, no, it got axed, and that's a shame. I fucking absolutely adore this show. But that not quite as much as number 2, iZombie. I freaking love this show. Now, as all you know, I am obsessed with zombie media. I absolutely love zombie movies, zombie shows, zombie comics. I'm obsessed. Like zombie audiobooks are what keep me going while I'm at work. I love zombie material. And when this show was first announced, I did not care because as soon as I mentioned as soon as it was mentioned that these are the brain-eating zombies, I'm not a fan of the movie Return of the Living Dead, so I just did not care. I did not care whatsoever about this type of zombie, so I just avoided it. But then on a whim, one of my friends bought me season 2, so I sat down to watch season 2, and then I was like, oh my god, this show is fucking stellar. I do only own the first 3 seasons of this show, because I guess they're just refusing to release seasons 4 and 5 on DVD. They are on Netflix, thankfully. Now, I will admit that the show is seemingly running a little bit out of steam. I've seen the first 3 seasons, and I've seen some of season 4. Now, I did not watch season 4 in the right mindset because I was sick at the time. So I think I do need to actually sit down and give season 4 a rewatch. There are elements to season 4 that I liked, but it seemed like there was a lot of stuff about season 4 that I just was not digging. The first 3 seasons of iZombie are perfect, but definitely my favorite season is 2, partially because it's the longest of the entire series with a whopping 19 episodes, whereas the rest of the seasons only have 13. But still, I freaking love iZombie. It's an utterly phenomenal TV show. As soon as I start a season, I cannot stop. But I fucking love this show. And I was so glad that it was actually able to end rather than get canceled. And with 71 episodes in its repertoire, so I think that's a good run. My number 1 favorite show of all time, this may actually surprise some of you, Star Wars: The Clone Wars. Oh my fucking God. I fucking adore this show. Another one of those shows where as soon as I start, again, at least a season, I have to keep going. Especially the first season. The first season of Star Wars: The Clone Wars is my favorite season of the entire show. Before anybody asks, I have not seen season 7. And I also have not seen the technical season 6, The Lost Missions. This fucker cost me $70, worth every penny. In my opinion, this is the greatest TV show ever made. It's got excellent story, excellent action scenes, excellent characters, great animation, and excellent exploration of the Star Wars universe. Introduction of one of my favorite characters, of course, being Ahsoka Tano. Great lightsaber duels, great action scenes, I already said that. The reintroduction of Darth Maul, and also my favorite lightsaber of all time, which is the Darksaber. I can't say enough good things about Star Wars: The Clone Wars. I fucking adore this show. So you might ask, why haven't I got around to watching season 7? That's because I have quite a bit of Star Wars to catch up on, and a lot of it is kind of crap. I have seasons 3 and 4 of Rebels to watch. I have seasons 1 and 2 of Resistance to watch. I have Solo to watch. I have 4 through 8 episodes of The Mandalorian to watch. After that, I'll get around to the good stuff and finish up TCW. But I fucking love this show, and this is easily my favorite TV show of all time. I just nerdgasm all over this show. So that'll do it for my top 20 favorite TV shows plus 5 honorable mentions. Post your comments down below. Let me know what you think. Hit the like button and hit the subscribe button. Tell me what your favorite TV show is down in the comments. I would absolutely love to know. And I will see you guys in the next video.